Here we are in episode 4 of RWBY Volume 4, and RWBY herself has still barely been in it. But this episode's still amazing. I just wanted to point that out. Hey everybody out there in YouTube land, Jake of the OneManBand is back again, and welcome once again to another RWBY review, episodic review, breakdown, and in-depth look, however you want to describe it. Now, we have a lot to talk about, so let's just jump right into this episode. This episode starts off with our new favorite mysterious character, the person that's been on everyone's minds. Everyone's been throwing out much speculation about who he is, the farm boy. Now we see the farm boy is entering back into the barn from his daily work, and he passes by a mirror and a sink. But when he looks himself in the mirror, it's as if he doesn't recognize himself. Now, this may lead to perhaps he is seeing a different reflection than what we are seeing, you know, perception and all that. But he seems to look at himself as if there's something strange or different about him than what it was yesterday. And he even asks the mirror, hello. He's asking himself, hello, and that doesn't really make much sense, except if he saw something completely different in the mirror rather than his reflection. And something actually answers. We hear Ozpin say hello and introduce himself. This may very well confirm the whole concept that this boy is connected to Ozpin in some way. A son, a reincarnation, or maybe even, like a possession of dual wills, maybe, in this child, in this boy. So, there you go. We now know confirmed that Ozpin is connected to this boy in some way. And it is after Ozpin introduces himself and the kid has a panic attack that we learn his name is Oscar. Fun fact for all of you, Oscar is the actual first name of the Wizard of Oz from the Wizard of Oz line of books. His first name is Oscar, and then he has like 15 million different other middle names, but it's also, in case you didn't know, Ozpin is an acronym of the first 5 of the Wizard of Oz's names. So, that's another confirmation that these two characters, the farm boy Oscar and Ozpin, are connected. Now, who this child could be based off of, he might be based off of Tip/Ozma from the Wizard of Oz books. Now, I'm not sure if that's entirely correct, but it may fit. So, we'll have to keep watching out for this boy, but we do know he's connected to Ozpin. His name is Oscar, and he also there's another person living on this farm with him. Now, it isn't his mother. If you check the credits, it states that it is Oscar's aunt. So does this mean it is an actual aunt by blood relation, or perhaps it means aunt by guardian? I mean, I don't know for sure right now. I mean, perhaps this woman is Ozpin's sister, or maybe it's someone tasked by Ozpin to watch over this boy. Until we know more information, I'm just going to go with that she's his guardian right now. So I'm so glad that we finally got some more time with the farm boy, and it is confirmed now that he is connected to Ozpin. And after we touch in on Oscar, we then transition to our favorite little sun dragon, Yang. And she's having a nightmare. Now, I'm assuming that she's had nightmares similar to this a lot. it's pretty much a recreation of what happened to her at the Battle of Beacon, except more horror-filled and she's completely powerless. Even though in the dream she is gifted her weapons, they don't even phase. They pass right through Adam. He is an unstoppable and invincible force in this dream, a force that cannot be stopped. And through the dream, once the climax happens, Yang wakes up from the dream. But she isn't waking up screaming, flailing, or pretty much all that together scared. It's a pretty peaceful awakening from a nightmare of that caliber. Which makes me think that she's had so many dreams and nightmares like this before, she's grown used to them. And she's learned to deal with the fear, and sure, waking up is still horrible and having that dream is horrible, but it's kind of the norm for her right now. But through her waking up, she hears laughter and conversation downstairs, so she goes to check it out. Now, before I get to the actual visit, I want to take this time to analyze Yang's outfit a little bit more. I know that we saw a little bit of Yang in the previous episode, but it was so short a time that I didn't really feel like I had to talk about it. But now that I've had more time to look at her outfit and see key things, I would like to talk about it. Mostly, I want to talk about the emblems and symbols that are on her articles of clothing. We see that on her pants, she has her emblem embroidered onto her pants, and she also has some form of skull patch. Now, I'm not sure what exactly this skull patch is from. It looks like I should know. It almost looks like a gamer clan tag. I mean, maybe it's a inside joke, maybe it's a meta joke from Rooster Teeth, but for right now, I can't pinpoint what that symbol is from. Now, obviously, there's a big difference between what her pants look like now and how they looked like in the concept art. Mostly, there's no bumblebee patch, which, you know, I'm totally alright with, but I know a lot of people aren't gonna be happy about it. But I know that I probably are making these observations after everyone has already made them. So I just wanted to point those out and just point out how I'm curious about that skull patch. And if you guys have any information about this skull patch, please leave it in the comments below. Also, if you look carefully, the jacket that she wears with the tied off sleeve, on her left arm there is a patch. Now, you would automatically think, oh, it's just her emblem. But if you look closely, it's not her emblem, it's her father's emblem. Tai Yang has that same emblem tattooed onto his arm. So, that jacket belonged to her father, probably back when he was younger and maybe while he was still in training as a huntsman. So, we see that Tai Yang and Yang have this connection that Tai Yang has gifted his daughter an old jacket of his, and I think that's just totally precious. I think a father passing off keepsakes like that to his daughter is just cute. It's amazing, and I love it, and it tells so much about how close these two characters are as father and daughter. Now, when Yang comes down to the kitchen, she sees that Professor Oobleck and Professor Port are visiting with Tai Yang, which would make sense because they are pretty much all from Beacon. Tai Yang was trained there, and both Oobleck and Port teach there. And they're all professional huntsmen, so they probably all know each other, especially since they live in the same kingdom. Now, they're talking about the good old days back when Team Stark was first entering Beacon Academy. And we know that both Oobleck and Port were there. Now, Oobleck doesn't make, correlation to if he was a teacher, so he may have been a teacher or he may have been a student at the time along with Team Stark. We don't know how old Oobleck is, so either one of these possibilities can be up in the air. But I think it would be really cool if Oobleck trained alongside Team Stark, which makes him, you know, have more of a friendly connection toward them instead of like sort of like that older friend like Port. Port states that he was a TA at the time, a teacher's assistant. So he was already a professional huntsman, but he was now taking on the mantle of a teacher and slowly probably would become the teacher that we know of him today. They're talking about how in the opening ceremony that Team Stark was at, Tai Yang was able to convince Crow to wear a skirt, although Tai Yang called it a kilt. And it caused a big kerfuffle, and it was just funny for everyone involved, probably except for Crow, who, you know, embarrassment happened. Now, this might just be a anecdote birthed from someone's mind, but it may be some form of meta joke surrounding Vic Mignogna, Crow's voice actor. Vic Mignogna also does the voice of Edward Elric in Full Metal Alchemist. And in Full Metal Alchemist, there is a character called Roy Mustang. And Roy Mustang has stated that once he becomes leader of the military, he will make it mandatory that every female member of the military will have to wear a miniskirt. And during a panel a while back, I'm not exactly sure which panel it was, but Vic Mignogna stated in Edward Elric's voice that a joke about miniskirts. So this may be a meta joke pertaining to that, or it may just be a joke pulled out of someone's mind. Either way, it's funny, and it shows that these characters, these old adult characters, can laugh about the past even with all this hardship going on, which I think is key to help Yang get over the troubles that she has right now. It's also stated by Tai that Crow had never worn a uniform before. Now, you would think that that's odd because we've seen every single academy that we've gone to and have seen, they all wear uniforms. Now, the combat schools before the high academies, I would assume, would operate in the same way, where you would have to wear a uniform. So this shows that Crow probably didn't go to one of the early combat schools. And there is a reason for that I'm going to talk about later on in the video. So just hold on to that whole Crow never wore a uniform before information. Once Yang enters the conversation and visit, Oobleck states her that besides many people thinking it, teachers do have a life outside of the classroom. And we learn that Glinda is the head of the Huntsman Spearhead that is trying to take back Beacon Academy, which would make perfect sense. She was Ozpin's right hand. Crow is busy off watching over Team Ranger and doing side missions and gathering information on the side. So it would make sense that Good Witch would take over that role as leader to help take back Beacon. And although they've been trying their best, it's still gonna take a while for them to take back Beacon. Port and Oobleck are just taking a rest, and everyone needs a rest every once in a while. Because if you keep working, keep doing your thing, you're gonna get to the point where you're gonna get burned out. And with Huntsmen, that can lead to death. And we don't need Oobleck and Port dying anytime soon. No sirree Bob. Once the nature of their visit is stated, they try to go back to the story at hand. Port states that the Bronwyn twins were always a little bit strange. And it's key here that when he brings up the Bronwyn twins, he's stating, of course, of Crow and Raven. But when this is brought up, Tai Yang seems to completely try to change the subject. He states that she's right here, meaning Yang. So he doesn't want information of Raven, stories about Raven, to be told around his daughter. Now, I'm not exactly sure why he wants this. I mean, it's obvious that he loved Raven back in the day because Yang has stated so. So, why would he not want information about Raven to be brought up? Maybe he doesn't want Yang to get any delusions of grandeur in her head and to go after Raven, which, of course, later on in the video, we learn makes a lot of sense why he wouldn't want that to happen. So Tai Yang wants to spare his daughter of anecdotes and embarrassing, maybe even what's the word I'm looking for? Convicting stories about Raven. And we see here that Tai and Yang get into an argument with one another. And for a moment, there's a certain line that's dropped, and you know it because you've watched the episode. Tai Yang states that Yang probably lost a few brain cells along with her arm. Now, if you were me, you were completely flabbergasted at this, and you were just like, oh, no! You don't say things like that, Yang! You don't say things like that, Tai Yang! You don't say things like that. And before this, Yang stated that, oh, why do dads always have to say the same three dang things? And he's like, because it works. And it's like, you can tell that they're having this argument, and like, Port and Oobleck are completely flabbergasted at this. But even what makes it more flabbergasting is when Yang laughs. We see that Tai and Yang have this such a close bond as father and daughter that they are able to make jokes about each other, have argument fights, but laugh afterwards. And Yang, she saw and heard what Tai Yang said, and she pretty much was like, okay, he wins, you're a jerk, and then they laugh about it. It's not mean-spirited in any way. And it takes a while for Oobleck and Port to catch on, and because they didn't want to step on anyone's toes, obviously. And they didn't want to bring up Yang losing her arm because they know that is probably still painful for her. But we see that she has learned to accept the loss of her arm. Port and Oobleck are concerned for Yang, and they want to know why she hasn't tried on the arm yet. And Yang states that she's scared. Called it, by the way. But Yang is scared to take up the arm because once she does, there's going to be no turning back. And people have stated that if you take on this arm, things will be able to go back to normal. But she spent so much time with only one arm that she sees herself with one arm as normal now. This is normal. Having one arm is normal now for Yang. She's taking her time to get better. And we know that she's been taking her time for 6 to 8 months, but she's still frightened at the concept of yet another change. She had to go through such a drastic change, and it changed her so much that she's scared of what might happen if she does such a drastic change again and goes back to being the flamboyant, funny, energetic party girl that we know Yang is, or at least was. Yang states that she lost a part of herself, which is something that none of the others in the room can really state, because they still have all their limbs, they haven't suffered grievous injuries that we know of, but there's something about the way that Yang says it. She's lost something, and it's not coming back. And there's another, and how Tai Yang states that, yes, it is never coming back. That makes me think of Raven. Yang has kind of gone through this before. She lost her mother, Raven, and then lost her second mother, Summer. Those could be essentially parts of her that she has lost, and she knows they are never coming back. Summer is never coming back because she's dead. Raven is never coming back because, well, she's Raven. And now she's lost an arm, and she knows it's never coming back. I just think that Yang has gone through so much loss that this is the loss that finally broke the camel's back, if you will. And she just doesn't know how to deal with the loss anymore. Tai Yang states that although it's never coming back, that shouldn't be the reason why she should stop. This is something that happens. Everyone has to deal with fear. Everyone has fear, but it is how you deal with the fear and how you triumphant over it that makes you a hero, that makes you better than the fear. Fear goes hand in hand with courage. Courage is the fear of going. but saddling up anyway. That's a John Wayne quote or something like that. You're frightened about what might happen in the future, but you have the courage to do it anyway. And that is what Yang was missing up until this point. She was afraid, but she didn't think she would have the courage and able to stand back up and go back into the world. And it's from here we get another silly anecdote about how Port is afraid of mice. And this is just funny because we had this, this kind of up in drama with like the argument that Tai and Yang were having, and then the conversation about fear and losing part of oneself, and then we segue in to another comedy bit, which I think is brilliant writing because we had all this to absorb, and then we get to laugh. Because that way we know it's good. That way we know what happened in this scene was all good and in good fun and to help promote Yang as a character. Yang heads back upstairs, probably to get some rest, and Port and Oobleck are saying their goodbyes. To which Port asks Tai Yang if there's any word about RWBY, and Tai Yang says no. So, the question is, has Tai ever thought of going out to look for RWBY? But Tai says that there's stuff he needs to take care of here, meaning Yang. I called that too, by the way. Having one of your girls go out to do something crazy is mind-boggling, especially for such a protective father as Tai Yang. But he can't rightfully leave a broken Yang behind. She needs someone to be there, or needed someone to be there in those early months of her getting over her injury. And now she's going to need someone to be there to help build her up so that she can take on her arm and get back to being the huntress that we know that she wants to be. So we had a good half of the episode dedicated to Yang, and I'm very happy. So let's head on over to the other side of the world where Team Ranger is continuing their journeys. Team Ranger is heading to a new town called Eganbana. It is a large town with well defenses and a popular inn. And the way that they introduce this inn, where, it's a rainy night and it's a very popular inn, reminds me of the Prancing Pony from the village of Bree in Lord of the Rings. But, that's just me. Now, it is confirmed that in this episode, although it's not confirmed right now at this point in the episode, it's confirmed later on in the episode, that the previous village that they passed through that was destroyed was indeed Xi'an Village. That's my bad. I didn't think it was Xi'an Village, but it is confirmed now that it is. So, I'm sorry about that. That destroyed village was Xi'an Village, which means the loss of it was even more hard-hitting to Jean than anyone else, because we had all that information about him hiking, camping there, going there with his family. So we know Jean was hurt during that point. But luckily, this village has good defenses, natural barriers, and is rather big. So it's relatively okay. Once they get there, they see that it's fine, they check into the inn, it's all good and dandy. No sleeping in the rain for them. They state that they haven't really come across that much Grim on the road, and they just think it's blind luck. But we know better than that. We know that they have a guardian crow on their side. Crow. Because he's killing a lot of Grim. And we see that Crow has his crow familiar with him. Now, once again, is this crow a familiar? Is it Raven? What is with this bird? I honestly think that this bird isn't Raven. This bird is sort of like an animal pet to Crow, which he uses to help watch over people. Now, I know that there's a lot of arguments for, the crows and the ravens being Crow and actually Raven, and that Crow may have the ability to transmorph into a crow. And I know there was that clip at the end of Volume 3 that highly suggests it, but is it really confirmed in my mind? No. I need to physically see Crow turn into a bird and then fly. I mean, we've seen Crow with this bird crow many times, back in Volume 3 and now in Volume 4. So the whole nature of, is this his semblance? Is it just a familiar? Is it Raven? Is still up in the air. Dang it, I want answers. But dang it, I don't get answers to that in this episode. I get answers to a bunch of other things, but not that. So, on to the rest of the episode. Alrighty, my friends, now we get to the biggest part of this episode, I think. I mean, the Yang part was amazing and awesome, but this is something different. We get to have a conversation between Crow and Raven. Remember, we've only seen Raven very few times throughout the entirety of the series, but we get to have an entire half of an episode dedicated to these two siblings talking to each other. And oh my gosh, so much information is dumped. I eat it all up. The conversation starts out with a drink being given to Crow. It's stated that the woman who ordered it for him wouldn't mind if he wouldn't mind bottom shelf alcohol, that is. The stuff that isn't really all that good, that you don't show the patrons. But the barmaid gave Crow top shelf, because he's awesome like that. And he's a ladies' man. Yeah. So, we see that Raven is able to, mess with Crow a little bit, giving him bottom shelf alcohol, and knows that he has a thing for alcohol. So, we do know that there's that connection there. And when Crow goes up to the second floor of this inn, and we see Raven, they have this standoff moment, which is just so beautiful in my eye. We have Crow in the greater light but lesser darkness, with Raven on the direct contrast. In lesser light, more darkness. And I think that is perfect in describing how these two characters are and how they are different. Each of them has darkness and light within them, but Crow has the greater light and Raven has the greater darkness. Just visionary storytelling, it's amazing, I love it. Let's move on to what is actually said. Now, this isn't a casual visit by Raven just to catch up with her brother. She wants information from this visit, and Crow knows that. Raven wants to know if Salem has claimed the relic that was brought up back in the previous episode. Once again, we don't know what the relic is. We don't know if it's attached to Ozpin. We don't know if it's some sort of MacGuffin crystal. We don't know what it is, but we know that Raven is concerned if Salem has it. Who knows? Maybe this relic can somehow pinpoint the location of the other seasonal maidens. I mean, it would make sense that she would want something like that so that she can gather all of the maidens' power. She can find them instead of turning over every rock looking for them. But, that's just a theory. A RWBY theory! Now, Crow doesn't answer this question about if Salem has the relic. He changes the subject, bringing up Yang. And he knows, he asked a rhetorical question, he knows that Raven knows that Yang lost an arm. But he seems it strange for her to bring up family, but not bring up her very own daughter. Her own flesh and blood, if you will. She has a very skewed vision of family. Raven states that it was her rule to save Yang, but only once in her life. That was her rule. The only time that she was going to interact with her daughter was to save her. Once. So that theory about Raven coming in at the last second, causing Adam to miss his strike against Yang that took her arm, is kind of dead now. Because we know that Raven only would have saved Yang once, and she already did that back on the train. Now, we get some information from Raven right here. Raven states that she knew Beacon would fall and Ozpin would fail. Now, the real question is, how did she know this? Was it just her intuition? Is she maybe somewhat in league with Salem and knew what would happen? Does she somehow have informants in both camps giving her information? Who knows? I think it's more along the line of an intuition thing. She just saw Ozpin and Beacon Academy as weak and knew that they would fall to the forces of darkness eventually. And Raven once again brings up the question, does Salem have the relic? Because she wants to know what we are up against. Which brings up the question, what we are we talking about? Does it mean Raven and Crow? Does it mean Crow, Raven, and the rest of the Huntsmen? Or does it mean Raven and whatever faction she calls ally? And this is where we learn that Raven and Crow were once part of a tribe of bandits. They were raised by a tribe of bandits. Crow states that they were a tribe of killers and thieves. And what do we know who are killers and thieves? The bandits. And we learn that Raven is now the leader of this group of bandits. So her allegiances are to this group of bandits. And it's here that we learn that they were the ones responsible for attacking Xion Village. Now this brings up the whole idea. If they were raised by a group of bandits, why did they leave to go to Beacon Academy? Which I think the only reason they left was to gain strength and to grow stronger. Learn the enemy, if you will. And during their time at Beacon Academy, Crow sort of, if you will, drank the Kool-Aid and decided to stay with Ozpin, while Raven, taking on knowing that she would become the leader of this tribe, went back. And she sees Crow as a betrayer, someone who abandoned their people and betrayed their family. It's here that we now know why Crow and Raven never went to any of the combat schools. They never wore a uniform before, because they were part of a bandit tribe. Raven states that it is pretty much the rule of her bandit tribe that the strong live and the weak die, referring to Xion Village. Now, this might go into the whole idea of why she only will save Yang once, and why she kind of disassociates herself from her own daughter. She may see her own daughter as weak and not strong. Maybe she only sees the people of her tribe as strong, people who live outside the kingdom's jurisdiction as strong. Yang, her own daughter, is not strong. And that's why she only will save her once, out of whatever motherly compassion she has. Now, even with Raven's immense power and a tribe of bandits at her side, at her back, Crow states that she must have had someone incredibly powerful on her side in order to take down Xion Village. And it's here that Crow sort of changes the conversation, and he even brings up the question of where the Spring Maiden is, and if Raven knows. Crow brings up that if the Spring Maiden is not found, we are all going to die. To which Raven replies with his response a while back, to what we are you referring to? And the way that she says it, and the smile that she has, makes me think that this Spring Maiden is actually a member of Raven's tribe. And she knows that she has the Spring Maiden with her. We have to remember, Tyrion was searching for the Spring Maiden. What better way to hide a maiden than with a group of bandits who are always on the move and probably don't take kindly to anyone coming into their territory or coming into their area. If the Spring Maiden is always on the move, they can't really pin her down. And if they had a Spring Maiden on their side, it would mean them attacking villages and gathering resources would be far easier, because they have the power of a freaking seasonal maiden on their side. Raven knows where the Spring Maiden is. She has the Spring Maiden under her wing. Pun intended, you know, because Raven. Raven is loyal to her people and her people alone. She sees her tribe as her family, instead of her ex-lover, Tai Yang, her daughter, Yang, and her brother, Crow. she doesn't see them as family anymore. She only sees her bandit tribe as family because they are strong. They have remained together. And she may even see her tribe as pretty much her very own children because she is the leader of this clan. Now, this whole conversation between these two characters, these two siblings, brought up so much information and so many ideas that when I talked about it with my girlfriend, she came up with this amazing theory about a great deal many things. About the maidens, about Raven, about Salem, about Cinder, and it's an amazing theory, and there's going to be a video dedicated to it soon. So watch out for that. Raven makes her leave of the bar by opening up one of her portals, and she walks out. She is seen by the barmaid, to which the barmaid is struck with fear. She is afraid of what that is, which anyone would be afraid of a dark portal opened up and a person just walked through it. But perhaps she recognizes this portal as a portal that bandits use. Perhaps she knows what that portal means, and perhaps now she is afraid that bandits will attack the town. Of course, we may never know, because the end of this episode ends with Tai Yang watering some sunflowers, and is it just me, or does the animation just not look very good? I mean, the water looks okay, but the way that it's just kind of passing through the sunflowers and how the sunflowers aren't reacting to the water, it just doesn't look good to me. I'm sorry, that's like one of the things that kind of got to me in this episode. But we see that Yang has finally tried on her new arm, to which Tai Yang states, it's time to get started. So, does this mean Yang's gonna be back to normal next time we see her? No. She still has a long way to go. She still needs to overcome her fear, she still needs to get better, and she needs to get back into the groove of things. She may have taken up her arm, but she still hasn't taken up her role as a huntsman. This is just the first step, and I think now that we'll be able to see Yang start to get better, it's going to be far better than anything that I predicted for Yang for this volume. Because we've seen her broken. We've seen her get talked to. We've seen her start to overcome her fear. We've seen her now take up her arm, and there's still so much more for her to do. So I'm excited for future Yang installments of this volume. This episode was the best ever of all time. Now, the title of this episode was Family, and we saw that what it meant by family was the whole family dynamic of the Xiaolongs, Rose, Bronwyn way. You know, their strange family dynamic. And that was amazing. I liked it how they did that. When I first saw the title, I was like, oh, so we're probably going to see Yang and Weiss, because, you know, Weiss is dealing with her family right now. But we didn't. So, although I was kind of disappointed that we didn't see Weiss in this episode, I'm hoping that the next episode will concentrate on Weiss and RWBY. And then probably the next episode after that will concentrate on Blake and Yang. But who rightfully knows? The creators know it's gonna be the best because they know what they're doing. And the only thing that I have so much to look forward to right now. The future episodes, I get to look forward to, you know, making new theories for you guys. And I hope you guys enjoyed this video. This episode was awesome. Hey, everybody out there in YouTube land. Thanks for watching this episode, this review. I'm pretty sure that it was a very long one. I took down 3 pages of notes for this episode alone. So, be sure to like and favorite if you've enjoyed. Subscribe, of course, if you feel inclined to. Check out some links down in the description taking you to my Twitter, my Patreon page. Big thanks to all my Patreon sponsors. You guys are awesome. I love you very much, and check out some other videos that I've done. And until next time, I want you to be a good person, tip your waitresses, keep moving forward, and I'll see you next time.